Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, the better-for-you beverage that fuels discipline, dreams, and determination. In the United States, the Center for Disease Control estimates that 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 20 boys will experience sexual abuse before the age of 18. And experts believe that the real numbers are even far higher. Now, when it comes to incest, the truth is even more hidden, buried under layers of fear, stigma, and silence. Survivors often endure years of abuse in secrecy, trapped by loyalty to their families and a lack of legal protections. Today's guest knows this reality all too well. Aziza Kibibi is an author, award-winning advocate, experiential trauma consultant, and content creator whose childhood was marked by unimaginable abuse at the hands of her father, abuse that resulted in 5 pregnancies and 4 births. Instead of letting her trauma define her, Aziza transformed it into a mission, protecting children, empowering survivors, and breaking the generational cycles that allow abuse to persist. As the founder of Precious Little Ladies, Inc. and author of Unshamed, A Life Tainted, she's working to criminalize incest in New Jersey and using her growing social media presence to reach millions with a message of prevention, healing, and justice. Here to shine a light on the hidden epidemic of incest and sexual abuse, her story is igniting legislative change, community healing, and global awareness. Aziza, it's an honor to welcome you to the show, superstar.
Thank you, Zen. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you because not only are you inspiring, but you truly are a trailblazer. It's an honor to chat with you, and I can't wait to let the world hear what you have to say. So I'm going to pivot right away to the decision to speak out, which was not that easy, I can't imagine. So many survivors take decades to tell their stories publicly, even if they ever do. And speaking out means confronting not just your abuser, but an entire culture that avoids these conversations. So can you take us back to the moment you decided to speak publicly and what finally gave you the strength to share your truth?
Well, it's something because there are actually 2 moments that I think I could connect with because of the fact that I was silenced by my father for so long. The abuse was from my childhood well into my adulthood. So I had been conditioned to keep secrets, to keep silent, to not share. So honestly, the first time I used my voice was against my father. And that moment was pivotal and led to everything else. The next time after that was when my sisters and I reported him to authorities, reported him to the police. And I guess you can say the third final time, which I think more is what your question is leaning towards, publicly was when I shared my story in a public speaking class. I was homeschooled, so I did not attend traditional schooling until I was 35 years old, and that was community college. And it was there that I had decided that I wanted to share my story publicly as a practice, so to speak. I had already started writing my book for therapeutic reasons. A lot of things had changed in my life. My daughter, who was a result of the incestuous abuse and who was one of my children that was born with genetic disorders, had passed away. So all of these things were happening in my life. And the fact that we did report my father, then the trial had started. So here I was in Essex County College in a completely new environment than what I was used to. And my classes and my professors encouraged a lot of being open and honest to tell your story. And even though they didn't know what my story was, I chose to use my story as a vehicle for practicing my craft and the things that I was learning. And when I did that in my public speaking class, a young woman who had been quiet for the entire semester came up to me crying, and she thanked me for being brave enough to share my story because it made her feel less alone. She had experienced something similar, and she had never told anybody. I was the first person that she had told. So outside of herself and her father, I was the first person that knew that her father had abused her. And that just inspired me.
Wow. So that moment of deciding to speak up, it truly is life-changing. I mean, you've shown that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's a decision to move forward despite it. And then you come to find out you're impacting others and you are a role model that must have really um, changed your perspective on things, that you're not in this just alone anymore. There are others out there. So let's talk about the healing and the rebuilding. So healing from trauma is rarely linear. There are breakthroughs, there are setbacks, and moments of deep uncertainty. What have been the most important steps in your own healing, and what do you wish other survivors understood about that process?
I think the two most important steps first is to accept what happened to you and accept how it impacted your life. And sometimes I think that is what survivors is the most afraid of, because it can be re-traumatizing. You had this traumatic experience that was painful, and your instinct is to bury it, to forget it. And it's so strong that even specifically with children, they will forget what they're going through or disassociate completely and create a whole other personality to manage the trauma that they're experiencing. So I think for the healing journey, that first step is to acknowledge what you have been through and really look at it from a different perspective. And then the next thing would be to grieve the fact that this trauma has changed you and that you will never be the person that you could have been had it not happened. So that's what I employed. I had to accept that all of the opportunities that I lost, all of the things that I could have done because of what my father did to me, they just won't happen. I won't get back. So I had to come to terms with that.
Your honesty about the ups and downs of healing is so needed because it lets other survivors know they're not broken and that they're human. So thank you so much for your transparency. So let's chat from survivor to advocate. So it's one thing to heal privately, but you just came full circle. It's another to put your life into the public eye for the sake of others and your sisters and your mother. That takes a different kind of strength. So how did you go from surviving the unimaginable to building a platform that is now influencing policy and inspiring change?
Um, One step at a time. Let me just say that one step at a time. When that young woman came up to me in my class and it inspired and encouraged me to then use my voice more and speak about what happened to me, then it was the next step. Then my father was being prosecuted and I had to use my voice to testify against him. So that contributed to me building up my resilience to eventually get to the place where knowing that my story could help others, then kind of, powering through the fear of actually doing it and the fear of being judged for doing it and just doing it anyway. So that took like a lot of faith and a huge leap of faith in order to build up the courage to actually do it.
Now let's chat about social media because that is your megaphone. So you've used social media to spark these conversations many people avoid, and some of your videos have reached millions. So how has social media amplified your mission, and what have you learned about connecting with audiences on such a sensitive topic?
So social media has really amplified the things that I have to share and the education, and I'm raising awareness because it reaches not only so many people, but such a diverse group of people, whether that be race, religion, ethnicity, and age. There are different platforms that have different age groups and audiences. And I've been able to adjust my message, tailor my message to these specific audiences. So youth specifically are on TikTok, and I decided to kind of edit my message slightly so that it'll be easily digested by them. And it just took off. It just took off.
Yeah, you've turned social media into more than just a platform. I mean, you've made it a lifeline for survivors who might not know where else to turn, and they stumble on your page and you are just a ray of sunshine and so much hope for them. So I love that. Now let's talk about the legislative impact. So many people don't realize that incest is not explicitly criminalized in every state the way they think it is. That leaves dangerous, very dangerous loopholes. So, what changes are you pushing for in your fight to criminalize incest in New Jersey? And how will this legislation protect future generations?
So currently, incest in New Jersey is only punishable by the law if it happens under the age of 18. And even then, it's a very broad stroke type of legislation. So it doesn't include specific types of abuse. So what I have done is drafted a piece of legislation that will be not only be specific to different forms of incest, but also help to protect and take into consideration that a person can be groomed into adulthood and still be victimized, even though, the world says, well, when you're 18, you can make your own decisions and you could just stop things or stop abuse if you want to, when we know that is absolutely untrue. It will also increase the penalties. It will also increase the penalties for incestuous abuse.
This is why your voice, Aziza, is so important, because awareness is the first step, but action is what actually saves lives. And that's what you're doing, right? And now let's chat breaking taboos and changing this culture. So incest remains one of the most taboo topics in our culture. It's crazy. That discomfort is exactly what allows it to thrive, in fact. So how do we as a society begin to break down the discomfort and taboos around incest so real prevention can happen?
To talk about it. Honestly, to talk about it. And I thank you for bringing me on your platform to talk about it, because that would be the first step. We have to, I don't want to say get comfortable with the idea that incest exists, but we have to be comfortable with knowing that it exists. So then we could push to make change and push to understand the impacts of it. And honestly, more than anyone, I want to reach people who are abusers or have the potential of being an abuser. So I think that that is definitely the first place to start, and to listen. Honestly, we could raise awareness, we could speak out, but we also have to take in feedback from those who are affected so that we can address it the best way we can.
Yeah, that's a very necessary challenge to all of us, right? To stop whispering about the problem and start talking about the solution, because that's when I do think, we are addressing the elephant in the room. Which brings me to, again, your story is difficult to even imagine, and yet people silently wonder how something like this can happen in a family. And that curiosity comes from really wanting to understand and hopefully prevent this kind of abuse, like you said, at least for me, right? So for those who are wondering how this could go on for years, what do you want them to understand about the dynamics of control, secrecy, and silence that allow abuse to happen even within a home?
I'd like everyone to understand that our culture, more specifically rape culture, patriarchy, misogynist belief systems, really contribute to things like this, because it forces it within the shadows. It forces the responsibility of stopping it on, it puts the responsibility of stopping it on the victim. Victim blaming is a part of why a lot of survivors stay silent. A lot of victims don't report because they're afraid that they're going to be held accountable. Also, our social and legal systems are contributing factors. So I use a really holistic approach between myself and, of course, my members of my team from my organization, Precious Little Ladies, to really attack and approach the topic in a way that addresses all of the gaps and weaknesses within the systems that allow predators to thrive and function.
Yeah, it's such a necessary truth for people to hear, because until we understand how abuse hides in plain sight, we can't protect the children who are living it right now. So
Yeah,
I
yes.
thank you for helping me understand that. Now, after hearing your story, many survivors and allies will want to know where to start, either in their own healing or in supporting someone they love. Now, if you could leave one message for survivors and for the people who love them, what would it be?
Listen. And I say that for both, for survivors and for the people that love them to listen to yourself, listen to your feelings, listen to your body when it's telling you that you have to take a break, you have to meditate, you have to get rest. And then for your loved ones, for people who love someone who has survived something like this, listening is a powerful, cathartic, empathetic tool, because then our brain taking the information, and active listening, we take in the information, we process it in our brains, and then we could better kind of calibrate our energy and our responsives to be supportive, to be encouraging, and to just flow with love. And I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
That's a beautiful and powerful reminder that healing is possible, and no one has to walk that road alone. And you're
Yeah.
such an inspiration. My last question to you, or I have several, but I'll stick it to one or two. What is your current relationship like with your father, and
Okay.
how has this changed your perception of motherhood?
Wow, those are good questions, Zed. So my relationship with my father is non-existent. He is serving 90 years in prison. However, my perspective of him is that of a man that made terrible choices in his life. A lot of people think that maybe he had some kind of mental health issues or needed to be psychologically evaluated. But at the end of the day, he succumbed to his desires and did not care how it affected the people around him. And he made terrible choices. So as a human, I do hope that he himself heals from whatever caused that, from whatever caused him to make those choices. But I would say I definitely don't have the same emotions for him as I did when I was younger. He's just another person on the planet at this point who needs to suffer the repercussions of his actions. However, I do want to go see him in prison. He's serving 90 years, and I would like to speak with him and get his perspective as an abuser, get see if I could pick his brain or get information from him so that I could use it to help bolster my work and discourage other abusers from acting on their urges. What was the second question?
Your
Remind.
relationship with motherhood.
Oh, my relation. Oh, so my relationship with motherhood it's loving. I am so proud to be a mom. I am so proud of my children. Even though the majority of them came from something that was so horrible and so damaging. I see them as my lotus flowers, because lotuses grow from the mud, and it doesn't matter where they come from. It's that what matters is that they are here, they are a part of me, and they are love and potential. So yeah, my relationship with motherhood, I'm just so proud, and I am happy to be a mom. I mean, my spirit, I think I'm just nurturing in general. So I really lean into it and I enjoy it.
You are a superstar. You are a trailblazer. I'm holding back tears of joy, because like you just touched me in a way, like as a mom, that your strength is just amazing. Your courage, your advocacy, and it's more about the relentless dedication, because you're reshaping the way our society talks about and addresses incest and sexual abuse. And you've reminded us that that prevention begins with breaking the silence, and protection requires legal reform, and healing thrives in community. So for those listening, I mean, I encourage you to all connect with Aziza's work, without a doubt. My dear, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Zen, for having me.
And for those of you listening, you definitely want to visit her website. You could go to azizakibibi.com, and you could follow an incredible organization called preciouslittleladies.org. And you could follow her across the gram, X, Facebook, YouTube, and all that good stuff at Aziza Kibibi and at PLL Nonprofit. Definitely share her story, amplify her message, and be part of this life-saving conversation. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com.